My name is Jakob Lehmann. I'm a conductor. I'm from Berlin, Germany. My first instrument was the piano, which I started to play when I was 4, but it didn't really set myself on fire, so I started to play the violin when I was 7, so that was my main instrument for a long time. And I actually just stopped a couple of weeks ago and will concentrate now fully on conducting. And I started to conduct, already in school projects. I was always interested in it, and I was doing a lot of larger chamber music and also chamber orchestra projects leading from the violin. And so this kind of set my path off, and now I'm fully conducting, and it's, I think it's great that now I play all the instruments in a way. I play the orchestra, and I'm very happy that all these instruments are there and being played by wonderful musicians, and I don't have to play them myself. So as a violinist, I worked a lot with period instrument groups. I started to play with Anima Eterna Brüche. I played with Les Concerts des Nations. I played with B-Rock in Belgium. So I played in a lot of different groups. And now as a conductor, I also work a lot with historical instruments, but also with modern groups, with symphony orchestras, and I really like the change. I really love both worlds, and I think both ways of performing or both ways of looking at music have absolutely a lot going for themselves. And with a repertoire, it's very inspiring to just have a large kind of depth and width of different repertoire and instruments. And this season, is very fun. I'm working, for the first time with Les Siècles, which is really a dream come true and a wonderful, wonderful group of people. I'm working with Concerto Köln. I'm working with the Orchestra of the 18th Century, both groups that I adore. I'm going back to the Tonkünstlerorchester in Vienna, which is a wonderful symphony orchestra, and I'm doing a lot of different repertoire with them. And I also do opera, so there's a large scope of things, and I'm really, really enjoying these different challenges in different repertoire. Les Siècles is always a group that, of course, I knew the recordings. I've heard them never in concert, but I, of course, knew what they were doing. I was very, very happy from the first rehearsal because the group is incredibly flexible. Everybody is ready to move into a different direction if we all feel like it, and especially in terms of tempo and tempo flexibility and rubato. From the first read-through, everybody was incredibly awake and ready to jump, and that's a great experience for me. Also, because we're touching repertoire with this Bruckner Symphony, for example, that we are rehearsing right now, that Les Siècles has not played before, and that is fantastic because you can really start with a blank page, and you can really kind of experiment with a lot of things that might be different when there is a repertoire that is really well known to a group of people. I feel very privileged and very happy that this group of people has accepted me in this project, and that I feel really that we are working on the same page, and that we know in every moment of rehearsal why we're working on something. That is something that is very important to me, and that's something that I think, or I hope at least, that we all feel. I think it is incredibly inspiring to use the instruments that the composer knew or that the composers composed for, because there's a lot of discussion around this idea of, if Bach would have had a modern piano, he would have liked it or not. And we can't say that, of course, but I think we can say that if Bach would have had a modern Steinway, he would have composed differently. And so I think there is a lot to be said about the sound world a composer knew and used for practical reasons. I mean, instrumentation, orchestration, balances, textures, and we know that these didn't only differ between times but also geographically. I mean, right now we are playing music that is from Vienna, and Viennese instruments in the same time period were very different from French instruments or German instruments or English instruments. So it tells you a lot of the composer's reality as well, and what the composers were kind of expecting to be met with. But I think another thing, and that is maybe not something that is only restricted to historical instruments, but maybe is in this world, comes more quicker to the musicians, is just to ask yourself, how do we play? It's not so much on what do we play, on which instruments, but how do we approach music? How do we approach a phrase? What is a forte in Schubert compared to a forte in Bruckner? What does, diminuendo or, all these expressive terms, what can they tell us in that time frame and in that, composer's world? And I think it always teaches us a lot about music itself and about, musicianship itself. But as I said, I'm absolutely not of the opinion that it only works with historical instruments. I think it is mostly also a mindset. I think you can be very unhistorical on period instruments, and you can be very historically informed on modern instruments as well. So I think there's no restriction in that sense. Especially for romantic music, of course, it tells us an incredibly large amount of things about the music itself and how it was perceived in that time.